Some might think it's childish, but honestly nothing pushed me towards French fluency more than cartoons. Because there's so many incredible animated films in French and people don't even know they exist. Some of them are basically cult classics, and yet most people have never even heard of the names. So today I wanted to show you the exact cartoons that helped me most and why they work so well for language learning, specifically for French language learning. And a quick disclosure, I didn't learn French only through cartoons, but I took classes like everyone else. But animation is the reason I stuck with it. I have another video from my fellow procrastinators out there where I explain why you need to find something you genuinely love. You can find it right here. And for me, that was cartoons, that was animation, that was what I lived by. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that that's pretty much the only thing I remember from my childhood. So taking everything I know about animation, cartoons, French cartoons, animations, or animations in French, here are the ones I would actually recommend watching and what each of them can teach you. So I'm gonna start out with one that I think most people have never heard of, and I think it's such a cult classic that I'm just so surprised that so few people have heard of this one. It's called Le Roi l'Oiseau. It's a wild, imaginative chase story between a tyrant king and a talking bird and two young runaways. And they're trying to escape from his control, and the world is this kind of dictatorial space, and it's very strange, very charming, and way more ambitious than I would ever have thought for a 1940s animation. There's not much dialogue, and like many other cartoons on this list, it's very visual, and that's why it's so useful for language learning. And but this one is a bit more for intermediate learners, but I think everyone should watch it just because it's such an interesting cartoon and influenced one of the greatest animators of our time, Miyazaki, and the fact that nobody has heard of it, or very, very few people have heard of it, honestly surprises me. I have a video comparing Miyazaki's last film, Kimitachi wa Doikiruka, or The Boy and the Heron, and Le Roi l'Oiseau. And it's just surprising how the quote-unquote grandmaster of animation of our time loved it so much, and yet nobody has heard of it. I myself have discovered it 3 times over the course of 10 years, and it's truly a very interesting one. It's quite old, but it definitely deserves all the recognition. It's very good for learning French because there's not too much dialogue, and a lot of the dialogue that is there is quite visual. There are at times difficult words, but for the most part you can get the general gist of the animation regardless, and that is the most important thing in my eyes, that you enjoy the animation and get the general gist of the animation. But also, if you want to analyze it more, by all means. It's very fun, very cool, and very, very interesting. So the next one on the list is Kiriku et Sorceress. It's based on West African stories, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to add it, because again, very few people have heard of it, and it's also very good practice for understanding accents. It trains your ear to understand a different type of accent, which is non-standard Parisian, and it would be very helpful for you to be able to navigate it. The story is about Kiriku, who is a tiny kid who decides to fix the mess adults have created, and the ones that they cannot fix themselves. There's a sorceress that has cursed their village, and he deals with it, and it's very simple, very warm, and surprisingly funny. Also very easy to follow, again, because it's from the perspective of a kid, like a young child, and I really liked it because it's quite unique compared to all the others that I will mention on this list, and generally compared to a lot of the different animations that generally exist on this planet. It has a very interesting storyline and West African influences. I would highly recommend you practice understanding or hearing different accents because it'll greatly help you understand other people. For me, it was quite difficult to change from standard Parisian accent to Senegalese for my case. When I was in Paris and I was doing my internship, I was living in like a shared dormitory, and there we would play foosball in the evening, and the first person that I played foosball with, he was from Senegal. The pronunciation in Senegal is very different from the pronunciation in Paris, France, and it's very difficult to train your ear if you have not heard enough French for throughout your life. So I would highly recommend you just kind of get used to the variety that exists in French, and this one is a very good example of that. The director of this animation is Michel Ocelot. He spent his childhood between Guinea and France, and so this greatly influenced his style. He has made many other animations, and the one that I remember as a kid was princes and princes. And it's about with silhouettes. He has a very interesting style that I don't think I've seen much in other cartoons, and I've watched also so many. But yeah, I would recommend maybe you look at other animations of his. But yeah, so I highly recommend, especially because it has a different accent and than the standard Parisian one, and it's also a very interesting animation. It's very sweet, very fun, and very beginner friendly to a certain extent. So I would very much recommend. The next one on my list is Persepolis, and many of you may or may not have heard of the graphic novel. And but then it's also animated, and I was so happy that when I found out that it was animated, because I quite like the graphic novel. So I was very happy to find out about this one. It follows the story of Marjane, who grew up during the Iranian Revolution, and the story follows her as she tries to figure out who she is and everything around her is changing. It's a very interesting and thought-provoking animation and graphic novel as well. I was honestly very surprised by both the graphic novel and the animation. When the main character is a child, the story doesn't look down on her, and just I really like the sentiment of valuing the child perspective, and I just think it's so important for language learning and just learning in general. And I don't know, I found it very interesting to read and very interesting to watch. Yeah, the whole sentiment of valuing child's perspectives is something that I greatly admire. I even have an entire video talking about how that's the way we should learn languages as a whole. So I think, and it's honestly, it's such a casual book to a certain extent. It has a lot of daily French practice, and from modern conversations to conversational French, and with a massive emotional range. So the dialogues are far more useful than textbook dialogue, where it's like, what is your name? My name is blah blah blah. It's far more realistic, and I think that is very useful for learning how to understand. So yeah, sharpen up your abilities on everyday conversations. So I realized this only while editing. I think I didn't give Persepolis enough justice in terms of how difficult the topic at hand is. It's an autobiography, after all, by Marjane Satrapi, and where she moved from Iran to France afterwards. So it covers very difficult topics, but it's also presented in a way that a lot of people can understand. It's presented in a very universal manner and very accepting and non-condescending of the viewer. So I just wanted to add that in. Oh, and by the way, if you're learning French and want help with pronunciation, I do one-on-one consultations where I teach you one really useful linguistics tool to help fix sounds learners struggle with the most. And it works for any language, and French included, so it's honestly one of the fastest ways to improve pronunciation if that is something you're struggling with. So I'll leave a link in the pinned comment below, and just fill out the form and we'll start working on your pronunciation if you're interested. Okay, and now we're going into the series, because before it was films or animated films, and now it's more like elongated series. So one that I think everyone has heard of, and if you've not heard of it, here it is. It's called Asterix, and it's a franchise, I guess you would call it, with a bunch of different films. It's Asterix with this and this, Asterix and with this and this. And it basically follows Asterix and Obelix, who travel around causing chaos, annoying Romans, and solving ridiculous problems using this magic strength potion. Every movie has the same mix of like fast jokes, great timing, classic French humor. I would highly recommend. Culturally wise, it's a cultural phenomenon, especially considering that there's so many live actions made afterwards. The live action with Asterix and Obelix Mission Cléopâtre is one that half of France can possibly quote by heart. By many French people, I think Asterix and Obelix Mission Cléopâtre could be considered as one of the best comedies, and also it's highly recommended, and the cast is just superb. They have Gérard Depardieu, they have Monica Bellucci, they have Jamel Debbouze, and they have the entire cast of Les Nuls, which is kind of like a French alternative of Monty Python. They're a group of French comedians, and they have a few films. They have La Cité de la Peur, they have a few others, and in part also Mission Cléopâtre. So again, highly recommend Asterix Obelix, based on comics and now a lot of different animations and cartoons, and also films. Next down on the series is Il était une fois. It's, again, a big umbrella term. There's Il était une fois homme, Il était une fois espace, Il était une fois vie, explorateur, terre, many others. Each episode is dedicated to something new, and there's so many episodes, it's honestly astonishing. Each series takes a giant topic, body, space, history, explorers, inventions, and explains it clearly, slowly, in a way that is actually fun to listen to. The Il était une fois universe is one of the best long-form listening resources in French, I'd say. It's narrated clearly, the pacing is slow, and the explanations are structured, and every series teaches you to follow French logic step by step, which makes it very, very good for French learners, because it's also intended towards children who are learning about the world, about language, about everything they can possibly find, and this series I would highly recommend. I know I loved it when I was younger, and my brother and sister also adored it. We would watch it together, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, next one in the series category is Chasseurs de Dragons. It's about these two slightly chaotic dragon hunters who run around the fantasy world filled with weird creatures and even weirder missions. It's light, funny, it's super easy to follow. They're a dynamic trio, I guess I'd say, and it's a story that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. Again, there's the series and there's also the film. I would recommend the series more, just because it's a bit more entertaining. But again, I've rarely heard anyone mention it, and it's such a great animation and such great characters. It's just fun to watch. Quite underrated and very excellent for comprehension, and more intermediate leaning, but also fun practice. Next one up, Tintin, or Tintin, Les Aventures de Tintin, is another one that if you've heard of Asterix Obelix, this one is the next one that you've probably heard of. But again, for those who have not heard of it, here it is. It's about Tintin and Milou, Tintin and his dog Milou, who travel around the world solving mysteries. They get into trouble, accidentally get involved in every possible international incident, and the animation series sticks closely to comics, so you can follow both along. There are Belgian comics and Belgian animation, I wanted to point out, but again, since they speak French, I put it into this subcategory. Again, since it's made for children, the pronunciation is precise, it's clear, straight to the point, and there's a lot of storytelling which allows you to not fully grasp the entire text and understand everything thoroughly, but it's fun to watch, and again, cult classics. This next one is one that I am particularly attached to. It's called Heidi. It was originally directed by Isao Takahata, and Miyazaki did the scene design and screenplay. So it was produced in Japanese, but then the first language that it was dubbed into was French. But since it's based on a Swiss book, and the first dubbing outside of Japan was in French, so I would still recommend it as part of this French-speaking series. It's a bit more childish than the others that I mentioned before, but it's really, really good for beginners, and so I decided to put it in, just because it has such simple lexicon, and it's intended for young kids. So it is a bit simpler, and but nonetheless it's quite fun, it's quite entertaining, and if you want to look at Miyazaki's work before he did Studio Ghibli type stuff, I would recommend watching. I also am particularly attached to this one because I would watch it with my parents when I was young, and now I live in Switzerland and I buy milk and I have Heidi on it, and I don't know, I just think it's quite sweet and reminds me of my childhood. It was one of the first ones that actually started watching in French, and I guess that stuck with me. Okay, now this one is an extra. It's not necessarily for French learning, but I do think it's for learning languages in general. It's a phenomenal animation, and it's also a French animation, so Les Triplettes of Belleville. It's about a cyclist who is kidnapped during the Tour de France, and his grandma teams up with 3 aged jazz singers, they're sisters I think, to rescue him, and the film is quite bizarre, quite stylish, and almost silent, but it's impossible to forget it because it's such an interesting animation. There's very little dialogue, but it has this very expressive storytelling. It'll teach you to interpret meaning from tone and context and not translation, which is something I think we all should learn to do if we ever want to start learning a new language. Yeah, this is the best way to learn And so I give it to you as an additional because I think it's just a phenomenal cartoon that also brings you this message. This is for those people who, for those beginners who panic when they don't understand everything, and I wanted to kind of give it to you as an addition, saying like, you don't have to understand everything, all is good, watch this animation and maybe you'll share the sentiment. So I actually have a bunch of other French films and series that I didn't include here just because this video is already way too long. If you want the full list, I'll put the form in the pinned comment below, and if you want to have it, then it's yours. It's free. So yeah, thank you for watching this. I hope this has been useful, and if you're interested in content like this, please subscribe, and I'll give you more content about languages, linguistics, and cartoons. And let me know what kind of other things you'd like to watch, because again, I do this for you guys, and I hope you enjoy the videos that I make. So please let me know what I can improve, or what other videos you'd like me to make. So if you like this video, if you want to see more of my cartoon recommendations, I have a playlist of animations from different languages. So far it's this one about French, there's Russian, Armenian, and Korean, and you can find that here. And if you're interested in how kids learn languages, which is something I've been talking about this entire video, and why I think adults should steal their methods, I have a whole video on that too, so feel free to watch those. See ya!